Welcome to Casting an Informed Vote. Here at WTNB, we want to make certain that you have the knowledge and the information in order to be able to cast an informed vote. One of 4 votes which you have available to you as you vote in the August election deals with each of 4 constitutional amendments. That's serious business. In order for an amendment to get before the people in Tennessee, there are one of 2 methods that have to be followed by the legislature. The first is one that we are using in this instance. The legislature has to pass a proposed constitutional amendment by 2/3 of the General Assembly. 2/3 of those votes of the General Assembly, and that is followed by a 6-month period of publication of that proposed amendment. The next General Assembly, that is, the next elected General Assembly, has to consider that proposed amendment, and it likewise has to pass those proposed amendments by a 2/3 vote. Then in the following election, after it has been passed by 2 General Assemblies, then the people are allowed to vote on those proposed amendments. When the people vote on those proposed amendments, oftentimes the amendments fail because not enough people vote on a proposed amendment. Our Constitution provides that a majority of the votes cast in the governor's race, has to approve the amendment before it can become law. In other words, if we had 1 million people vote in the governor's race, then 500,001 persons would have to cast a vote in favor of that amendment before it would pass. What we see is that people do not understand constitutional amendments in Tennessee and oftentimes don't vote in that. So if there's only 400 or 499,999 people, or even 500,000 who vote in that constitutional amendment, and they all voted for the amendment, guess what? It doesn't have enough votes to pass. It's a very, very cumbersome process. That's the way our founders wanted it to be, both at the federal level and at the state level. Difficult to amend the Constitution. The winds of change don't oftentimes change as quickly as we would think. It takes a long time for people to understand what an amendment might be, to even get it before the people. What we want to do when we come back, we want to share with you the content and the meaning of these 4 proposed amendments. So listen up, call a friend, say, hey, golly gee, did you know that we get to amend the Constitution this year? They may want to tune in and learn more about the constitutional amendments which are confronting the voters of the state of Tennessee. We'll be back in just a moment.
For over 25 years, Ed Jacobs & Associates has been treating each of our clients like business partners. Finding the right insurance for your employees shouldn't be that complicated or expensive. Receiving quality financial advice for you and your business should be even easier. We treat each client with respect and integrity and handle your situation as if it was our own. Call me today for your own free consultation.
My name is Dr. Gary Wojtek.
Here at the Wojcik Center for Orthopedic Care, we specialize in general orthopedics, sports medicine, and workman's compensation injuries. I have over 17 years of experience in the field of orthopedic surgery. At the Wojcik Center for Orthopedic Care, our staff is top-notch. Not only are they talented professionals in the medical field, they are dedicated to their families and our local community. Our family loves to help your family stay on the move.
Companion Funeral and Cremation Service. A true single-family owned practice, Companion Funeral and Cremation Service offers options at half the price of other homes without a drop in service quality. Located on Georgetown Road, we're a neighbor that you know and a friend that you can trust. At Companion Funeral and Cremation Service, it's our family serving your family. We ensure that this is not just a day in your loved one's lifetime. It's a celebration of your loved one's lifetime in a single day.
In this moment, it doesn't matter if you save money in 15 minutes or if your neighbor has the same insurance that you do. What matters right now is the quality of your independent insurance agent and the company that stands behind them. Auto Owners Insurance.
Town Americana, where trucks are big and bold, and a handshake is firm, and your word is gold. Don Ledford Chevy Buick GMC in Athens is a $2,000 drive. Maybe you're coming from here or here, doesn't matter. Buying a truck from Don Ledford in Athens will save you at least $2,000 bucks. Don Ledford Chevy Buick GMC in Athens, a $2,000 drive worth making.
I'll take that drive every time.
Kyle Motors, 802 20th Street Southeast in Cleveland, is the place to find quality pre-owned cars and trucks. Kyle offers on-the-spot financing on all vehicles on the lot. Each pre-owned vehicle goes through a complete inspection to make sure each car and truck meets the Kyle Motors standard. Warranty and extended warranties available on all vehicles. Kyle Motors will sell you a car or truck that you will be proud to drive for many years to come. See Tony, Bill, Dale, James, or David and let them put you in your next quality pre-owned vehicle. Kyle Motors, 802 20th Street Southeast. Phone 790-7100.
Now that we've discussed this process about how Tennesseans amend their Constitution, we are pleased to be joined by Andrew Brown, a young man I've known for many years, and we're going to talk about the specific amendments that are before the people of our state. You're going to have the responsibility of voting on these amendments come Election Day, and those of you who are participating in early voting, you get the opportunity to now. Andy, first of all, thank you so much for joining us today. This is a very important topic, isn't it?
It certainly is, Mr. Logan. Thank you for having me.
Well, amending the Constitution shouldn't be taken lightly, but many of these amendments, I think, are not too complex. Can you share with us what the First Amendment is that the voters will be confronting?
Absolutely, Mr. Logan. This First Amendment is one which deals with abortion rights in this state and what the legislator can do, that's our elected officials, can do in order to preserve those rights or to curtail them in whatever way is necessary.
I think that this came about as a result of a state Supreme Court opinion which said that our Constitution protects individual liberties even more than the federal Constitution. Is that right?
You're exactly right, Mr. Logan. That's my understanding of it. And this amendment is intended to make sure that the people of this state have a say in what goes on with regard to abortions through their elected representatives. I think that's the intent of it. And the question come Election Day is whether or not we as Tennesseans view that as something that we would have our legislators being able to control and enforce.
So if I'm hearing what you're telling me, then if you vote for this, you'll leave it up to the legislature to determine under what conditions a person can get an abortion in Tennessee, can obtain an abortion in Tennessee, so long as it doesn't offend the United States Constitution.
Mr. Logan, I think you're exactly right, and I think that's the entire intent behind what the legislator's doing, is they want to make sure that people have a say in what goes on.
Okay. Well, that kind of runs into this framework of the Constitution, the protections of individuals from the people. So I guess that's a pretty serious question we have, isn't it?
Well, that's exactly right, and that's why this has been submitted as a constitutional amendment, and it's gone through the process that's necessary in order to get us where we are today, which, as you know, and which a lot of us are just kind of understanding at this point, as we don't amend our Constitution much. This process takes many years,
right,
and it takes many votes, and that's why that now we see this issue come up for the first time before us.
Well, it's what an interesting challenge. That is, if you vote for this amendment, the legislature may restrict the right of a person to have an abortion no matter what the consequences of that abortion might be.
Mr. Logan, I think that's exactly an excellent observation. One of the things, though, that you have to keep in mind, quite frankly, is that the legislator is wanting to maintain some authority over those decisions. And I think that they're, for good or for bad, they're wanting to make sure that courts have a say the same as the legislator would.
Well, interpreting the laws that they might enact could add additional complexities to it.
There's no doubt about it.
It's a tough, tough amendment. What about amendment number 2?
Mr. Logan, this amendment number 2 deals with how we select and appoint our Supreme Court justices as well as our appellate justices. Those are the intermediate court justices. This amendment is designed to afford the governor the ability to appoint judges at his discretion if there's a vacancy, and then that would be something that would then be approved by both of the houses of the legislature, which is the state senate as well as the House of Representatives. After that's done, that would be when a retention election would be held on down the road after they fulfilled the term of their office, and then the people would have a right to say whether or not they retained or rejected that justice that was appointed through that process.
Over the years, I can only think of one Supreme Court justice who has not been retained. That was Penny White, I think back in 1978 or 80, somewhere in there. Most of the time, appellate judges stay in office, don't they?
That's correct, absolutely.
Well, we used to have, as you know, I served on the Tennessee Judicial Selection Commission, in which people who wanted to be nominated had to go through a very rigorous evaluation before they were submitted to the governor. There were 3 names who were submitted, and then the governor got to choose. Now that we've done away with the Judicial Selection Commission, this process would mean that it's up to the governor as to how he chooses his person to fill a vacancy. Is that right?
That's exactly right, Mr. Logan. The way that this is changing from a practical person standpoint is that you used to have a group of folks who came together and they developed names to submit to the governor, and then the process proceeded from there. This change would eliminate that selection committee. It would be left to the governor to then come up with the names on his own and then to choose the one that he saw fit that was best suited for the position. Then it would be submitted to the legislature, where both houses would have to approve it by a majority.
Well, to Governor Haslam's credit, not to get involved in the governor's race, but after the Judicial Selection Commission was disbanded by the legislature, Governor Haslam appointed his own nominating commission to evaluate people who might be interested in serving. I think that nomination process has sort of got to be in place, doesn't it, to do some filtering?
Well, you know, I'm not the governor, and neither are you. There's certainly got to be a process, and it's not something I think that any governor would take lightly. I can't say on down the road what happens, but certainly the process has to be in place by which names get to the governor. And then from there on, the idea, I think, from the legislative standpoint and what our legislator is trying to do is make sure that there's some accountability, that there's still an approval method in place after the governor makes his selection. And as you know, this is very similar to how our federal system is set up, and that's in that there's an appointment that's made and then the houses have to approve it thereafter. It's different in limited ways, but it's still very similar, and that's the route that we're going.
And I guess the protection for getting good judges would be that some of these legislators wouldn't mind finding valid criticism of someone who might sit, for example, on the Supreme Court.
I think that's probably accurate. I think that there's certainly some concern within the legislature that the right people may not, just as with any election, that maybe we don't have the right people that are going forward, and this would give them the ability to have a say in whether or not that person should move forward or not.
This concept of the retention election would finally end, I guess, this dispute about whether or not a retention election is an election.
And as you know, of course, much more so than I mean, the way that the Constitution is written now is that it references that judges and justices are supposed to be elected. And there's been, some controversy as to whether or not our current appellate process is, in fact, an election. And this is, I think, designed in a way, and I think that the majority of legislators who have been in favor of this have said it's a way for us to somewhat modify our plan so that we're still complying with the Constitution, even though there have been decisions by courts in this state which have approved that the current system is one where there is an election that occurs. This is just to basically consolidate that situation to make sure that everyone is on a level playing field, I think.
I think you've just hit the nail on the head with reference to that. The last two amendments, as I said earlier, there were 4 amendments which are proposed for folk. And I talked before we began, talking about the specific amendments about how many people have to vote for these before they become a part of our Constitution. It looks like that, again, Amendment 3 may be something that we've already sort of got a hint as to what the law is without the constitutional amendment.
Amendment 3 deals with the income tax, and essentially what it appears that the legislature is attempting to do. A vote in favor of Amendment 3 would essentially be a ban on an income tax in this state moving forward. That's what it appears is the spirit of that law, and I think that's what the discussions have led to being the conclusion. There's, of course, still the Hall income tax, which is in place, and courts interpret the law. They're the ones that tell us what they mean. And this amendment does not specifically address the Hall income tax, which deals with businesses more than anything else. But it's certainly open to interpretation what this effect would have, the passage of this amendment would have on businesses. However, from a personal standpoint, this would prohibit an income tax being levied on the individual citizens of this state.
Right, and as you pointed out, it says earned personal income. And it also affects cities. There have been some people who thought that municipalities could have a payroll tax. Looks like this gets rid of that possibility.
Mr. Logan, again, this is one place that I defer to your judgment on that, but it does appear that it would have an effect even on those municipalities as well.
And now the last amendment that we have to discuss with our viewers is something dealing with lotteries. What's this all about? I thought we solved this problem a few years ago when we said that lotteries are gambling, if you will, for charities in our state could go forward.
Well, this is an interesting one, and one which, quite frankly, I was not anticipating going to be on the ballot, but it snuck through under everybody's noses. But essentially what this does, and it's just different, and it doesn't apply to the ordinary citizen. What it does is it allows basically veterans associations to have an annual lottery which would then be able to raise money for that association. Now right now in the law we have a situation where 501c3s, which are charitable organizations, can, after the approval of the legislator, have an annual lottery or some way to raise money through a lottery type system. This just adds those veterans administrations, veterans associations to the groups of people and organizations which can then have those lotteries to raise funds.
Well, it sort of looks like that's just an oversight when we passed the original amendment. Is that the way you read it?
Well, it may very well be. I'm not quite sure what happened with the initial amendment, but certainly they're looking to make sure that veterans and other people of that nature can be taken care of the same way as everyone else.
So our charities can have what essentially is a gambling circumstance to raise funds, and now veterans organizations can as well.
And an interesting note in all this is, again, the legislator has the say over whether or not they can actually have that annual fundraiser or lottery, as it may be. So this is still left within the discretion of the legislator as to whether or not they can even raise those funds.
So if I don't get a 2/3 approval of the legislature, then I still would be violating what we understand the law to be about gambling.
Reading the letter of the law, that's absolutely correct.
Wow. So you have to make an application. I think that you have to make an application to the legislature now before you hold those fundraising events.
Absolutely. That's the way that it is right now, and I think that's the way they intend for it to move forward.
You know, I probably shouldn't say this, but sometimes I think folks go ahead and do things, but if they're doing them for good causes, there's kind of a blind eye.
That's exactly right. Sometimes you got to raise the money for the good cause.
These, we laugh a little bit as we just got through, but this is really important stuff, isn't it?
Every single one of these amendments is extremely important. We don't amend the Constitution just on a whim, as you know. It takes a long time, and there's a long process, and there's a lot of people that get to vote on whether or not these issues even get presented to the people. But people certainly need to take it seriously because it is a very serious thing.
And as we pointed out in the beginning, and first of all, let me just express my appreciation to you, Andy, to spending some time familiarizing yourself with these constitutional amendments, because people have a right to know. You know, the American Bar Association this year's, our theme is every vote counts. Wow. I'd suggest that a lot of folks who don't know what these amendments say just will leave that blank, and maybe for good reason. Every informed vote counts a little more, doesn't it?
That's exactly right. And I think that's why you do these programming, which we, as the Bar Association, I can't speak on behalf of the entire bar, but I know that myself and my firm, William J. Brown and Associates, we're very appreciative of the things that you do and the information that's given to folks when it comes to these issues, because they're difficult, even for people that study it every day. And every little bit of information that people can get is very helpful.
Thank you, Andy. Folks, that's what this is about, giving you information and knowledge. Here at WTNB, we are so pleased to provide you with the information that you need to cast an informed vote. And we encourage you, if you have any questions, call a lawyer. The lawyers will be happy to discuss these matters with you. Our local bar association has decided to promote this program because we think that it's good knowledge for you, and we know that you want to be a participant in making our society ever better, ever, ever better. Do that by voting, and vote because you know what you're voting about. That's important. Share it with your neighbors, share it with your friends at your church, your civic clubs. Everybody cast an informed vote about these constitutional amendments. Thank you very much. We'll be back in a little bit.
Hello, my name is Andy Figglestar with Ed Jacobson Associates. We are an employee benefit and insurance broker in business for the past 20 years. The new healthcare law, also known as Obamacare, has finally arrived. The new law is complex and choices are confusing. You have questions, we have the answers. It is our passion to find cost-effective solutions for every client. Let our knowledge, experience, and passion go to work for you. Contact us today and let us assist you through this process.
At Crawford Pharmacy, we offer custom compounding. Our pharmacists are known for their attention to detail and unique expertise. So visit us at 2260 Chambliss Avenue, Cleveland, Tennessee. For personal assistance, walk right in or come up to our convenient drive-thru. Crawford Pharmacy, serving our community one person at a time.
In this moment, it doesn't matter if you save money in 15 minutes or if your neighbor has the same insurance that you do. What matters right now is the quality of your independent insurance agent and the company that stands behind them. Auto Owners Insurance.
East West Media is not the area's largest billboard company. They do, however, have the area's best billboard locations and most creative advertising ideas. If you need new customers in Bradley, McMinn, or North Hamilton County, you should give them a call and talk about what is important to your business.
My name is Dr. Gary Wojcik. Here at the Wojcik Center for Orthopedic Care, we specialize in general orthopedics, sports medicine, and workmen's compensation injuries. I have over 17 years of experience in the field of orthopedic surgery. At the Wojcik Center for Orthopedic Care, our staff is top-notch. Not only are they talented professionals in the medical field, they are dedicated to their families and our local community. Our family loves to help your family stay on the move.
Companion Funeral and Cremation Service. A true single-family owned practice, Companion Funeral and Cremation Service offers options at half the price of other homes without a drop in service quality. Located on Georgetown Road, we're a neighbor that you know and a friend that you can trust. At Companion Funeral and Cremation Service, it's our family serving your family. We ensure that this is not just a day in your loved one's lifetime. It's a celebration of your loved one's lifetime in a single day.
Kyle Motors, 802 20th Street Southeast in Cleveland, is the place to find quality pre-owned cars and trucks. Kyle offers on-the-spot financing on all vehicles on the lot. Each pre-owned vehicle goes through a complete inspection to make sure each car and truck meets the Kyle Motors standard. Warranty and extended warranties available on all vehicles. Kyle Motors will sell you a car or truck that you will be proud to drive for many years to come. See Tony, Bill, Dale, James, or David and let them put you in your next quality pre-owned vehicle. Kyle Motors, 802 20th Street Southeast. Phone 790-7100.
Welcome back to Be an Informed Voter. We're so privileged today to have with us a gentleman I've known for many years, the Chief Justice of the Tennessee Supreme Court. Folks, as we shared with you how important the constitutional amendments are to our state and your participation in voting on those constitutional amendments because of the numerical requirement that we have a certain number of people who would vote in that election. And we have to have a majority, as I've shared with you, of the people who voted in the gubernatorial race and the governor's election in order for those to be considered passed, if you deem for them to pass. Now, though, we're going to confront what I think is one of the more significant elections that we have to vote in August, and that is the election to retain or reject the existing Supreme Court justices, and those consist of Connie Clark, Cornelia Clark, our Sharon Lee, who's from our neighboring community of Madisonville, and now we have the privilege of having with us Gary Wade of the Supreme Court and Chief Justice now. Hello, Chief Justice.
How are you, Jim? Nice to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Well, we're privileged to have you with us, and thank you for taking time from your busy schedule to come and be with us. Justice, would you sort of introduce yourself to the people of Southeast Tennessee? I know many people here know you. We couldn't get back to the recording studio here because of the people who are stopping and shaking hands with you and those things. but introduce yourself to our listening audience.
Well, I'm a small town boy. I grew up in Sevierville, Tennessee, and of course went to the public schools there, and the only university that my parents knew at that time was the University of Tennessee, so they sent not only myself but 3 of my brothers to the University of Tennessee to try to get a college education. So obviously I'm an East Tennessee boy, I'm a mountain boy, and I'm a product of the public school system in Sevier County. Thereafter, Jim, as you know, I practiced law for some 15 years in Sevierville, and during that time had the privilege and honor of also serving our little town as mayor, an unpaid voluntary position, and sometimes I've said that I was in charge of barking dogs and late garbage pickup. But I got a postgraduate degree in the education people gave me during that period of time, and I look upon those 10 years I spent as mayor as the most productive time of my life, because I was not only the town mayor, but I was practicing law from very early in the morning until very late at night, as you know, as is required of our profession. So that's my background before I entered the judiciary. I was appointed in 1987, thanks to you and others, to the Tennessee Court of Criminal Appeals, where I served for 19 years. The last 8 of which is the presiding judge, which is the administrative judge on the panel of 12 judges of the Tennessee Court of Criminal Appeals. And in 2006, I was fortunate enough to be appointed by Governor Bredesen to the Tennessee Supreme Court.
You mentioned Sevierville, and there's a fellow that we folk here in southeast Tennessee think a lot of, who came from the Sevierville community. Coach Bill Robertson. Did you know Coach Robertson?
Oh, we grew up together in the same neighborhood, used to play pickup basketball together. Bill had 2 or 3 years on me, but he was a genuine human being. I never heard him say an unkind word about anyone. It was one of the greatest honors of my life to be asked by his wife, Betty, to be a eulogist at his funeral. Bill and I go back to when I was 7 or 8 years old and just got to tag along in our community. And of course he became a terrific athlete as he grew and prospered. And perhaps one of the funnest summers I ever had was when I played the MC and the singing cowboy at the saloon at Gold Rush Junction, now Dollywood. And Bill had been the long-time train robber, Frank and Jesse James, and the comedian in the saloon, and we enjoyed a great summer together that year.
Mr. Cheney, who served with me on the Tennessee Judicial Selection Commission, spoke fondly of those days, as he apparently was one of the Indians there on the train, and he talked about you. And I tell you what, the CEO of Farm Bureau had nice things to say about you behind your back, Mr. Chief Justice.
Hewlett Cheney also fits in the same category as Bill Chief Robertson, as you may have known him here in Bradley County. He was always Bill growing up. But Hewlett was a very young city administrator in Sevierville, Tennessee, 32 years old, when he persuaded me to run for mayor of that small town at age 28. And 6 months later, Hewlett came in and said he was going to take a job with the Farm Bureau. and I said, you can't do that, because I'm not sure I can be very successful at this job without your leadership. And he says, oh, you're ready, Gary, go ahead. So sure enough, he left me, and within 10 years, of course, was running the company, which tells you a whole lot about Hewlett Cheney.
Sure does. 2 great endorsements there behind your back given to me about you, Mr. Chief Justice. You can't get much better than the CEO of Farm Bureau.
The people you grew up with and knew you well and think well of you, what a greater compliment there could be. I'm not sure I deserved their good remarks, but if I have 2 better friends in this world than Hewlett and then the late Bill Robertson, I don't know who they are.
Let's talk about what's facing the voter. That's what we're trying to do here at WTNB, is to give people information so that they can cast informed votes. You know, the ABA says every vote counts as our theme for this year because of the election year. as the ABA, American Bar Association, tries to promote the liberties that we have in this country. But we've tried to focus on being an informed voter. Tell us how or what criteria we should use, because I suspect that maybe 80 to 90% of our viewers just don't have the experience to know Gary Wade either personally or professionally, or Connie Clark, or any of the other people who are there, our own Justice Lee. How should we evaluate the candidates for retention on the Supreme Court?
Well, I enjoy the quote by Chief Justice John Roberts of the United States Supreme Court when he appeared before the Senate Judiciary Committee. He says, "We don't make the laws, and we don't write the laws. We're simply there to adjudicate the laws once presented to facts." And he equated our job on the Supreme Court or his job on the Supreme Court of the United States, and I view it the same way as a Supreme Court Justice on the Tennessee Supreme Court, to an umpire at a baseball game. We simply call the balls and the strikes. The legislative branch makes the law, and the judicial branch is called upon from time to time to interpret those laws when they're not clearly written or misunderstood or disagreed, or there was disagreement as to the interpretation of the laws. And so that's the way I view our chore, is simply umpires in the ball game. Now, having said that, umpires in the ball game, I doubt that you will ever know their names, and it's a good thing. And just like referees in a football game, you want to know about the Tennessee and the Alabama, or the Tennessee and the Georgia teams, the leadership, the quarterback, the coach, but you don't want to hear about the referees. And I liken our position to that of the referee in the football game as well. We prefer to be anonymous, because the attention should really go to the litigants before the court, or to the parties before the court, and certainly not to the judiciary, because we're simply there to offer our judgment and hopefully in every single instance follow the rule of law and uphold our constitutional principles.
As you know, as we mentioned before, and I've mentioned in other parts of our discussion concerning the constitutional amendment regarding the selection of judges to the Supreme Court and the appellate courts, I had the privilege of serving on the Judicial Selection Commission, and that was a rather rigorous process which people had to undergo. You will remember that some of those questions we asked were quite succinct and to the point. And then we had, after we went through that process, the appellate judges had to go through what's called a Judicial Evaluation Commission. Have you gone through that before this election?
Yes, I have. In 1994, the General Assembly, our legislative branch, decided to try to take partisan politics out of the selection of appellate judges, from the Court of Appeals to the Court of Criminal Appeals, and certainly to the Tennessee Supreme Court. And the basic plan was to have people that were qualified on the front end to evaluate judges or lawyers who sought to be appellate judges, scrutinize their past records very carefully, their abilities in the law, and to present 3 names to the governor for appointment. Then, of course, the TBI background check comes into play. So once you and the other members of the commission named the 3 individuals to be presented to the governor, there was further scrutinization in the governor's office, and then the governor picks one. But our formula in 1994 was designed not only to have front-end review, but back-end evaluation, grade cards as I like to call them. So in 1998, as a member of the Court of Criminal Appeals, in 2002 and 2006, and again in 2010, because we do the midterm, and finally in 2014, the Evaluation Commission, which today is appointed by each of the 2 speakers, the Speaker of the House and the Speaker of the Senate, and then with a joint appointment and comprised of 9 people, basically handed out grade cards in February of this year, early February. And I am pleased to say that throughout my term thus far, the accountability quotient has been perfect. I have been able to persuade those members of the commission that my work is done timely and well, and on each and every instance I receive a unanimous vote, including the 2014 vote. And out of the three of us now candidates for the Supreme Court, there were 26 out of 27 possible votes. And I compliment the Evaluation Commission this time for having not only such good judgment, but having carefully reviewed all of the candidates before them, and of course all have qualifications, superior qualifications on the front end, a fact that you and others make sure of, but it's heartening to me to know as Chief Justice that the judges are receiving good marks by those who should know best whether they're doing good work.
And the people who did this evaluation process, as you've mentioned, were chosen by Lieutenant Governor Ramsey, Speaker of the House, Mary Beth Harwell. Is that correct?
Yes, and the Speaker Harwell and Speaker Ramsey each have 4 appointments, and then one is a joint appointment. There were 9 people, as I mentioned, who went through carefully our records. There were 2 carryovers, just to get the record straight. Speaker Williams, who was Speaker before Speaker Harwell, appointed Henrietta Grant, one of the 9 commissioners, an African-American woman from Knoxville, and the Judicial Council, which is since sunsetted, appointed Renata Soto, but they were late term. Their terms will end shortly, so that in the future all of the 9 members will be appointed by the 2 speakers.
Let me mention a couple of things which I have observed, and I don't mean to be overly critical with reference to these advertisements that are cast over the airwaves suggesting that perhaps folks should not vote to retain you, inconsistent with the evaluation. There's one talking about tell the Supreme Court that we're against Obamacare, something to that effect. Do you have anything at all to do with that kind of topic?
No, in short. Just an anecdotal reference to the first mail-out. My daughter Gigi worked for Congressman Jimmy Duncan for either 3 or 4 years in Washington, D.C., and for Senator Lamar Alexander for a year. So obviously the Wades are on the mailing list, and as you well know, Jim, and those who are familiar with Sevier County, we have no Democratic office holders there. All are Republicans and dear friends, and many, in fact, are relatives, since so many of us are related to each other in the mountains. And of course I got that, as did my 3 children, and within 3 hours, all in separate independent calls, I've got calls from my son Zach, my daughter Katie, and my daughter Gigi, and each wanted to know when I'd become a liberal. So obviously they were interested in taking advantage of that fact in case it was true. The Obamacare issue is really hard to believe that someone would make that allegation. Of course, this is the Tennessee Supreme Court. It's not the United States Supreme Court, and the legislation by our Congress enacting the Health Care Act is something that this court will never face. No issue will ever come before us regarding Obamacare. And it is troubling. It is disturbing to see that that people of stature and high office would be willing to associate this court with issues of that nature.
A basic doctrine that we have to follow in the law, practicing in federal court, as you know I do a lot of, we've got the supremacy clause and the doctrine of preemption. I've read opinions that you participated in which affirm judges dismissing cases dealing with federal issues because that's not your job, is it?
Absolutely, and I've written at least 3 of those cases on federal preemption, and And the supremacy clause is exactly what it says. It is supreme. The United States Supreme Court is supreme, and they have the ability, as you well know, to review any of our works if in fact they involve an interpretation of the federal Constitution.
How do you deal with that kind of involvement of money politics and portraying a message that's just blatantly dishonest? How do you deal with that?
I have a lot of faith in the people of Tennessee. I think our electorate is pretty well educated, and of course it will have its impact. There will be some who will think that perhaps this court had some relationship with, as extreme as it may have been, with the United States Supreme Court, and of course nothing could be further from the truth, but I believe that the people of Tennessee want fair and impartial courts. Courts that are not beholden to any individual, whether it be the Speaker of the Senate or the Governor, and that the judges act as they should. Accountable certainly to the people of Tennessee, but nevertheless independent from the influences of either the executive or the legislative branches. And so I believe that after having practiced law and been in the judiciary for almost 42 years now, that the people of Tennessee simply want fairness. They want justice, and they don't want any individual or group of people, especially out-of-state interest, tipping those scales of justice in one direction or another.
Some people have said that we don't want money buying justice. Justice is not about money, is it?
It is not for sale. The obligation of every court in this country is to present a level playing field to the litigants. We do have an adversarial system. That's why we have lawyers advocating the interest of their clients. And in a perfect world, you get two really fine lawyers representing the people of this state and presenting those issues in a manner in which it's reflects well upon the legal profession. And then it's our job then to take these controversial and difficult cases at the Supreme Court level and resolve them. Obviously you have winners and losers in the appellate system, and not everyone walks away with a smile on our face. But I can assure the people of Tennessee that this Supreme Court leaves no stone unturned, that we do our absolute best to assure that the right thing is done and justice is meted out to all who appear before us.
Let me just get to this very, very practical issue. How and where on the ballot is this issue of the Supreme Court, and how is that question phrased?
Well, typically we're last on the ballot, and so I ask voters to be patient above all else, and to keep turning those pages or going through the processes until they reach the very end. And the words today are retain and replace. They used to be yes or no. I think most of us in the general public clearly understand yes or no. And retain and replace is a little bit more difficult. But nevertheless, the option for each and every voter will either to retain Justice Gary Wade on the ballot or to replace. And my hope is that those in the electorate will choose to retain Justice Gary Wade, and I'm pledged to each and every one of them that the Tennessee Supreme Court will continue to be fair and impartial, assess each issue in a very careful and meaningful way, and administer justice to the best of our abilities.
You know, we have a former Chief Justice who just lives down the road here, Mickey Barker. A lot of people know Justice Barker, and Justice Bill Koch just left the court to go to be the Dean of the law school there in Nashville. Each of them have spoken out pretty loudly that we don't need this money in politics.
Yes.
They are respected Republican leaders in our state, and I know you're pleased to have that.
I am indeed, and the legal profession, those of both parties who have been in the appellate court system, and especially those who have served on the Tennessee Supreme Court, have been to our Supreme Court what the choir is to the minister. You have been our best ambassadors. There's many things that we cannot say that we would like to say in response to some of these charges that, as unfounded as they are, might potentially affect the voter. And it is admirable that former Chief Justice Barker, that now former, just a few days ago, Justice Bill Koch, who served as Commissioner of Personnel in the Alexander administration and also served as legal counsel for Senator Alexander, and I'll make reference to former Chief Justice Barker's background. He was a trial judge for years in Hamilton County and a very respected jurist there. But it is very gratifying to have people of stature like that to speak out for the system, because it is important for all of us as judges to promote the integrity of the system, to assure people that they're getting a fair shake when they walk into a courtroom.
We've been pleased to have Chief Justice Gary Wade with us in our casting and informed vote programs. We encourage you to consider the issues which have been raised, the merits or the demerits. Call your lawyer, call your local jurist, ask them for their advice and counsel about how you can evaluate, as the Tennessee Evaluation Commission has evaluated the 3 justices whose names are on the ballot this August. Thank you so much for listening. Be an informed voter. Tell your friends and neighbors, hey, listen to WTNB. You can learn how to cast an informed vote.
For over 25 years, Ed Jacobson Associates has been treating each of our clients like business partners. Finding the right insurance for your employees shouldn't be that complicated or expensive. Receiving quality financial advice for you and your business should be even easier. We treat each client with respect and integrity and handle your situation as if it was our own. Call me today for your own free consultation.
In this moment, it doesn't matter if you save money in 15 minutes or if your neighbor has the same insurance that you do. What matters right now is the quality of your independent insurance agent and the company that stands behind them. Auto Owners Insurance.
My name is Dr. Gary Wojcik. Here at the Wojcik Center for Orthopedic Care, we specialize in general orthopedics, sports medicine, and workmen's compensation injuries. I have over 17 years of experience in the field of orthopedic surgery. At the Wojcik Center for Orthopedic Care, our staff is top-notch. Not only are they talented professionals in the medical field, they are dedicated to their families and our local community. Our family loves to help your family stay on the move.
East West Media is not the area's largest billboard company. They do, however, have the area's best billboard locations and most creative advertising ideas. If you need new customers in Bradley, McMinn, or North Hamilton County, you should give them a call and talk about what is important to your business.
Companion Funeral and Cremation Service. A true single-family owned practice, Companion Funeral and Cremation Service offers options at half the price of other homes without a drop in service quality. Located on Georgetown Road, we're a neighbor that you know and a friend that you can trust. At Companion Funeral and Cremation Service, it's our family serving your family. We ensure that this is not just a day in your loved one's lifetime. It's a celebration of your loved one's lifetime in a single day.
Town Americana, where trucks are big and bold, and a handshake is firm, and your word is gold. Don Ledford Chevy Buick GMC in Athens is a $2,000 drive. Maybe you're coming from here or here, doesn't matter. Buying a truck from Don Ledford in Athens will save you at least $2,000 bucks. Don Ledford Chevy Buick GMC in Athens, a $2,000 drive worth making.
I'll take that drive every time.
At Crawford Pharmacy, we offer custom compounding. Our pharmacists are known for their attention to detail and unique expertise. So visit us at 2260 Chambliss Avenue, Cleveland, Tennessee. For personal assistance, walk right in or come up to our convenient drive-thru. Crawford Pharmacy, serving our community one person at a time.
Kyle Motors, 802 20th Street Southeast in Cleveland, is the place to find quality pre-owned cars and trucks. Kyle offers on-the-spot financing on all vehicles on the lot. Each pre-owned vehicle goes through a complete inspection to make sure each car and truck meets the Kyle Motors standard. Warranty and extended warranties available on all vehicles. Kyle Motors will sell you a car or truck that you will be proud to drive for many years to come. See Tony, Bill, Dale, James, or David and let them put you in your next quality pre-owned vehicle. Kyle Motors, 802 20th Street Southeast. Phone 790-7100.
The Bradley County Bar Association and the Cleveland Lions Club is pleased to bring you these programs over the years that we have done so to let you be an informed voter. The American Bar Association's theme for this year is "Every Vote Counts," and it truly does. We here in our community have seen races decided by one vote or two votes. Folks, this election has very important races statewide. We want you to go vote, but we want your vote to be an informed vote. The best vote is an informed vote. Please share what you've learned from these discussions on the issues and of what's taking place in our Supreme Court. Pass that information on to your friends, your fellow church members, your charitable organization members, your fellow workers, because we want to turn out the vote. Tragically, 13% of the people voted in May in Hamilton County. Just something under 20% voted in Bradley. We need more people to participate. Make your vote count. Go vote and do what you know is best for our community and for our state and our nation. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening with your family and your friends. Listen to WTNB Channel 5 right here on your television dial.